One of the most historical court cases in terms of education was Brown vs. Board of Education of Topeka in 1954. This case took a segregation within school systems or the separation of white and black students within public schools. Up until this case, many states had laws establishing separate schools for white students and another for black students. The landmark case made those laws unconstitutional. The decision was handed down in May 17, 1954. Brown vs. Board set the foundation for the civil rights movement and gave African American hope that separate but equal on all fronts would be changed. The fight that followed after was ruling in not a pretty one. Many people lost their lives fighting for their rights and opportunities to live free in a completely equal and blended society. It was not an easy transition, and tension ran extremely high during these times. Schools nowadays are said to be melting pots. This landmark case opened the doors of all schools to all people across the United States. It allowed people of all colors to have an equal opportunity to a free and public education, no matter where they lived or what their race was. After the U.S. Supreme Court decision in the Brown vs. Board of Education court case in 1954, the Little Rock School Board announced its intention of complying with the federal constitutional requirements. This requirement was integration of blacks and whites in the same schools. This was a big controversy, especially in the South. The Little Rock Nine were a group of African American students enrolled in Little Rock Central High School in 1957. On Monday, September 23, 1957, the night students set off for high school. They knew there would be violence, so they went in rear entrance. White mobs were there to protect because they didn't want any blacks in their school, and the reporters were there in support of the blacks. White mobs that were waiting for the 9 students beat up black reporters because they didn't want them near their school. When the mob heard the 9 students had entered the school, they went crazy. The black students left out the rear exit right when the mob came in so they wouldn't get hurt. To make sure that the students completed a successful day at school, President Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne Division to Little Rock. Each student had their own patroller to walk with them to school during school, but whites still beat them. After a few weeks, the patrollers left and 9 students had to protect themselves. Finally, Christmas came around and the blacks wanted to get away from the whites. 8 of 9 students couldn't be happier to get break from school, but not Miriam Brown. She was suspended for dumping her lunch in 2 white males because they were insulting her. The whites told the press that they didn't blame her for getting mad. She was suspended for 6 days. Then she was suspended again for calling a white girl white trash. None of the whites were suspended. The other 8 all finished school year successfully, and Ernest Green graduated that spring. He was the first black student ever to graduate from Central High. Little Rock Central High School still functions as part of Little Rock School District, and it's now a National Historic Site that houses a civil rights museum, administered in partnership with the National Park Service to commemorate the events of 1957.